Hey everyone, I hope that you're enjoying the Digital Marketing Europe conference so far. We're back here after the lunch break. My name is Sahar. I'm the host of the Tools and Channels track, and we are here with Robin de Wouters from FEDMA, the Federation of European Data and Marketing. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. We're really looking forward to the conversation today. And, email marketing, right? It's a big part of most marketing plans. It's personal, it's direct, it's cost effective. Often its ROI really can be beat. And you've put together a study on this very topic.
Correctly. As you mentioned, I work for FEDMA. We're a Brussels-based trade association, and we represent all the data and marketing industry, which includes email marketing. And we're seeing with our members, our clients, with the industry, a trend to go back to email marketing, which had perhaps kind of dialed down, for a little while. But now with all the regulatory pressure on online advertising and other types of marketing channels, email marketing is really resurfacing as a great privacy-friendly way to communicate in a bilateral way from a B2C perspective.
Absolutely, 100%. But you also really need to know how to use it to understand its limitations, things like data privacy, things that have to do with legislation. And you're going to touch on some of those topics today as well.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I mean, I'll get into the nitty gritty in a while once I have my presentation up about the study and so on. But yes, we'll certainly look into the latest trends in email marketing and what marketers really need to pay attention to when they're setting up or improving their email marketing strategy.
Fantastic. Well, let's dive right in.
Thank you. All right. I hope everybody can see my presentation. I don't see it up on my screen, so could you please just confirm that it's up? Yes. Okay. Now I see it. So, well, thank you everyone for being here. It's a pleasure for me to be here and to introduce you to our work and our latest study. So perhaps just kind of like a background information. So I just touched base quickly on it. But so FEDMA is the Federation of European Data and Marketing. We're a Brussels-based trade association representing the broad data and marketing industry. So we have national DMA members. I see that the slide got stretched out a bit. So national DMAs, data and marketing associations across broader Europe, and then we also have a wide array of industry members. And the common interest is really to move forward with the use of data marketing in a privacy-friendly way. So what we do is we are an advocacy organization in Brussels with the European institutions to ensure that the latest EU regulation is, of course, privacy-friendly, but also business-friendly. We try to strike the balance between privacy and innovation. But on the side of FEDMA, we also manage GDMA, which is really the crux of today's presentation. So FEDMA is the Federation of European Data and Marketing. GDMA is the Global Data and Marketing Alliance. So it's a much smaller structure, but it's still based out of the same office or managed by the same people, but it has a much broader angle, broader scope, which is global. And in this case, we have about 28 national data and marketing associations around the world, as you can see highlighted in red on the map. And what we really want to do here is to promote a global data and marketing culture across all sectors. It's clear that marketing channels are used by virtually any organization. So it really applies to everyone. And it's only by having a unique way of thinking and a way forward that works for everybody that we can really create a privacy-friendly culture when it comes to personal data, the use of personal data. Of course, legislations vary broadly between regions, countries, and so on. GDPR in Europe, CCPA in the US, the new DPDI bill in the UK, and so on. So of course, it's difficult to have one set of rules that fits all in terms of a regulation, but it's only through self-regulation that industry can really go beyond regulation and make sure that their ethics are on par with the expectations of consumers. Now, GDMA launched last year its first international email benchmark, study in collaboration with the DDMA, which is our Dutch DMA, Data and Marketing Association. And what this study does is it looks at the states of email marketing. So the purpose of the study is really to, let's say as a baseline is that email is an invaluable marketing channel. For many, it's the primary channel to communicate with consumers in a personal and relevant way. But email is also highly subject to change, not only because of technological developments, which we'll get to in a bit, but also shifts in consumer behaviors and restrictions from legislators. And as I said, of course, these regulations are very different on a global scale. So the objectives of the study is to strengthen the position of email as a channel, to give valuable practical insights to any company really that has an interest in email marketing. And finally, and certainly not least, to provide an independent baseline measurement of the current state of email marketing against which organizations can measure their own email practices. So how do you as an organization fare compared to another organization in your sector, in your country, with your own objectives and so on? So very broadly overview, this study, which is the first one, as I mentioned, on a global scale, it includes 21 ESPs or email service providers from Latin America, Canada, Belgium, Netherlands, and the UK. I'll get to that towards the end of the presentation, but we are, of course, working on the next edition of the study which goes beyond these countries, and we're trying to expand to as many countries and markets as possible. It analyzed 881,000 email campaigns, and which represents over 200 billion emails sent for these markets. So it's certainly something in terms of what it means for email marketing. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the main figures of the study because these are really nitty gritty. I just want to show a few just to show you how granular the study goes in terms of the metrics that it analyzes. So it includes the acceptance rate, the hard bounce rate, and the soft bounce rates, for example, but also unique confirmed open rates, unique click-through rates, and unique click-to-open rates. These are among other metrics that are analyzed in the study. But what's really interesting beyond this, let's say, raw data, is to be able to compare how and kind of like mix and match the data. So if you take unique click-through rates in Belgium, for example, which is where I'm based, how does that fare sending an email in the retail industry on a Monday as opposed to doing the same in Brazil on a Tuesday? Really like a very strange example, let's say, but it's really to show how granular this study is trying to get. So if you go deep, if you dig a bit deeper into this study, we see that, for example, in terms of industry, the most email campaigns are sent for the retail, business services, and banking and insurance industries. So an additional metric for the study is that it categorizes types of industry, so that if your company is in retail or your company is a nonprofit charity, well, of course, your results are going to be different, but they should be, should compare apples and apples, not apples and oranges. Another deeper dive is in terms of months. So what are the most popular months to send an email campaign? Overall, we've seen that the study shows that it's September, October, November, and December. But of course, these vary according to markets. So they vary according to the type of industry and so on. So this, again, is just to show how granular this study can be. In terms of days of the week, we've seen that Thursdays and Fridays are the most popular days for sending emails. The least popular is the weekend, but actually, and this is just one point that I want to make, is that while the weekend is least popular, the acceptance rate is actually the highest, and the hard bounced are lowest. So again, depending on what your objective is as an industry, as an organization, it could be interesting, to compare your data to this study to see where you fare and what you can do to improve. Now, beyond the study itself, like the let's say the raw metrics, what we really wanted to provide also is a dive into major international trends. So this we did in collaboration with, of course, the email service providers that took part in the study, but also with industry experts that gave their view and opinion on what is fueling email marketing right now. So we've taken out three major trends, which I'm going to get a bit deeper in a minute. So the first one is AI-driven content and creation. Email is winning in the approaching privacy-first world. This is really about the demise of third-party cookies, and we'll touch also on Apple's mail privacy protection. And then the third is the advent of AI and BME for improving email deliverability. So if I start with the first one, AI-driven content and creation, we've seen that AI, for all its opportunities, it also carries an element of fear for creatives, but also in general. We've seen there's a rise of generative AI, which is very, I find personally anyway, very troubling. AI has its challenges, and this is why it has to be structured and regulated so that it can be used for the greater purpose. But it also carries great opportunities. And so specifically AI for content production, well, AI can it can change the way something is written in different ways so that your message can be seen by different people, different angles, different types of industries and so on, but based always on the same basis. And while some may see this as a challenge, of course, because of automation of tasks and so on, it also allows creatives to be creative by really pitching in the raw content that it needs for the AI to function. And then AI can kind of use that to do an array of content based on that on that basis. And we've seen that personalized email content through AI shows more engagement. So again, it's about balancing. It's a balancing test between what needs a human touch and what AI can do to expand that. And then another type of AI or use of AI and machine learning is for content personalization. So there's a lot of talk about the omnichannel, omnichannel context, about the customer journey, making sure that all your marketing departments, work in unison. That a consumer will click on in an email and a link, then we'll go on a website, then we'll click on that ad that will take him or her to another website, and then from there they might buy something that's completely unrelated, but then they'll go back to the email and so on. So this is the customer journey, whether it's digital or also offline, and every customer journey is different, and this is where AI can improve the personalization based on marketing automation. It can make sure that a consumer, or can help in making sure that consumers who follow this trend of consumer journey, might actually be more able to buy something online rather than doing offline and so on. So these, of course, are all examples just to kind of like set the scene. But the idea is really to use dynamically the omni-channel context to have not only email marketing, but digital advertising, direct web selling, so e-commerce, out-of-home advertising, and so on and so on. So everything, all the pieces of the Tetris of the puzzle work together. So I do want to say that a lot of the AI that we're talking about, they're not mature yet. They're not on a mature level, but they will soon be. And that doesn't mean that marketers can, sit back and wait. Marketers need to start preparing now, because it's only by kind of being prepared ahead of time that you'll be able to quickly adapt to what's coming in terms of new technologies and how it's going to change the industry. So I'm going to get a lot more detail about zero and first-party data in the next slides. But this is really like an absolute priority, is to go away from third-party data and enabling more zero and first-party data for your organization. Second point is that AI is only as good as the data it plugs into, which means that AI cannot, if you don't provide the right data to begin with, it'll be skewered for good, for bad, or worse. We've seen plenty of examples where AI has been has done unjust treatment to HR hiring, for women, for example, because it was assuming that all the people that are working in an organization are white males, and so therefore that's what the AI should be looking for, is a white male. That is completely skewered, and it's because the inputs data was wrong. So the data you have must be important, and this goes to a broader point about the use of data that you have, not only in email marketing but for your organization. I mean, if you're under GDPR, for example, you should. There's the concept of data minimalization. Only get the data that you really need, and not just get as much as possible, and then you don't know what to do with it. Anyway, so going a bit out on a tangential here, but it's really important that the data you have is correct and is of course processed in a legal way under GDPR or the other legislation that you're under, if there is one. And as I said before, AI can understandably cause apprehension, but in a meaningful relationship with your consumers, AI is an opportunity, and AI is there. It's not going anywhere, so you need to harness that power, that possibility ahead of time. And just to point out specifically about Web 3.0, because this is really one of the hot topics at the moment. It's not a trend. It's a path we're already on. We're not like fully immersed in Web 3.0, but it is definitely where we're going. We're seeing it with blockchain and cryptocurrencies, with non-fungible tokens. This is just kind of like the tip of the iceberg. We are going into, and metaverse aside, we are going into a system where there's going to be a lot more interactivity with the crowd, and everything is going to be kind of like interlinked. So you need to plan accordingly. So that was for the first trend. The second trend is email marketing is winning in the approaching privacy-first world. And to begin with, a bit of background information on Apple's mail privacy protection. So it was introduced in September, I think, 2021, to provide Apple Mail users with more privacy. It has had a huge impact on many metrics that email marketers were using as KPIs in the past. So open rates, click-to-open ratios, open time, IP address, and so on. Because without going into the technicality of AMPP, what it does is it kind of hides the ability for players to see exactly all these metrics for the user, because it's enhancing the privacy of its users, but it's hampering the KPIs of the business. So how to deal with AMPP? Well, these metrics are, I'm not going to say they're a thing of the past, but they're not going to be as relevant now as they used to be. So marketers need to consider looking beyond them and go through other metrics, but also build a lasting relationship with your consumers. Because in the end, these KPIs, if the click-through rate is good and you get the sales that they're looking for by sending an email, perhaps the KPIs of the email campaigns itself are less relevant if you know that your consumers are actually buying your product or your services, or going to your website, whatever the call to action is. There's also a big question about what other major players will do, such as Microsoft, Google, Yahoo, and so on, and whether they'll follow Apple. And for this, of course, this is anyone's guess. It's not. I'm certainly not working there, so I can't say for sure. But what we can say is that if you analyze their audience, Apple has always been an extremely strong B2C business. They want, they've always championed their products to be the product of consumers. Whereas Microsoft with Outlook and Google are more B2B. And you could imagine that with this shift, it would be a lot more difficult for them to justify having such a strong change to their business, because it would basically hamper their relationship with businesses. Outlook is obviously used for a huge amount of people that use, like Windows and perhaps also Apple products, and Google as well. So Google has been at the forefront of spam filtering since basically its inception. So it would be kind of counterproductive for them to follow suit in Apple's steps, anyway, to that extent. But of course, anyone's guess is good, and we'll have to see what comes next. Just also to mention that Apple, in a July 2022 litmus study, 57% of emails are opened in Apple products. So just to give you kind of like a rough idea, this is not nothing. Let's say this is something. More than half your emails are opened in Apple products. So the impact of AMPP does have far-reaching consequences for the industry. Now, again, beyond the AMPP and so on, in a privacy-first world, we're seeing an existing trend of third parties being phased out. Google has announced it, or Chrome has announced it for years. I think it was pushed 2 or 3 times. They've put forward several, alternative identifiers. There was Turtle Dove, Fledge. Now it's Topics. So we'll see how the industry is going to move forward. But what is sure is that regardless of the identifier that will replace the cookies and identifiers, because of course we don't want a single identifier. This is a danger, again, stepping out of just email marketing. We want to ensure that it's not a walled garden, as it's called. It's just basically, like there's one identifier for the Google sphere, one identifier for the Meta, Facebook sphere, and so on, and that therefore you have to work with theirs. We want something that is transversal, that is horizontal for the whole industry. But beyond third-party identifiers, this is what I was saying at the beginning. Marketers, organizations have to move away from these and to go more for zero-party or first-party data collection. And so, just to kind of like, explain briefly, zero-party data is data that is deliberately and proactively shared by a customer through quizzes, polls, surveys, and so on. So it's basically you as an individual, you are unambiguously, voluntarily giving information to a customer, to an organization, by filling in information and so on. First-party data, on the other hand, is collected directly but passively from your customer journey. So that's CRM, your websites or app use, social media, and so on. So you're giving information by basically just using the products or the websites and so on. And just to be clear, when we're talking about, because a lot of people say bye-bye cookies are going away. We're talking about third-party cookies. There is no indication, and there's actually no way to replace currently zero-party and first-party data, because that is a way that is the way for a relationship to evolve between a consumer and the organization. And first-party data is necessary for a website to function, not only analytics, but also just to remember your language. If you go to a website that has websites depending on your country, if you select that you're based in the UK, well, that it's the cookie that's going to be able to save that for next time. It's cookies that are going to be able to remember that in your carts there's 3 products that you just bought and so on. So again, it's third parties cookies going away. Zero party, first party are not going anywhere, not anytime soon. There's no talk about this. So this is what companies need to revert to. And to get to that, you have to re-examine your relationship with your customers. Now is the time to future-proof your marketing and data strategy by reverting to more transparency and giving more control to your customers through zero-party and first-party data. And again, going back to email marketing, the focus has to shift away from direct clicks, but more to a long-lasting relationship. So instead, and these are of course just a few examples, instead of asking your marketing department or whoever's in charge how to obtain that same information, that data from your customers, ask yourself or them, what do you want to do with your customer data? Think about data minimalization. How does it benefit your customers to give you this data point? We know that the study has shown over and over again that consumers are more concerned about the use of their data, about their data being aggregated and sold to third parties and so on. So make sure that if you're asking for a data point, it has to be beneficial to them. How do you obtain that data and where you're going to apply? this is a point of zero party and first party data for the data collection anyway. And then, sorry. And then, of course, in return, what are you going to bring as value to your customers based on the data they've input? And back to email, email has always been and is perfect to gather zero-party and first-party data. One example, for example, is gamification, which is the use of games or quizzes and so on in emails. We've all received an email where you get an email from your favorite chocolate company. Sorry, I'm from Belgium, so that's the first thing that pops up in terms of product. What your chocolate company sends you an email saying, oh, what kind of chocolate do you prefer, or how do you like your Easter eggs to be filled with, and so on. And you're providing that information, and that will allow the company to engage with you based on your preferences. And this is information that you've provided voluntarily. Of course, you can accept. They have to accept. Sorry, that you maybe not want to give that information. Last point I want to make on this trend, and this is directly coming from an email marketing experts that provided valuable insights to this study, is that a lot of companies still work in silos. Their marketing departments is, there's the email marketing, there's the CRM, there's online advertising, there's out-of-home advertising, there's maybe telemarketing or direct mail and so on. But what we really need is for companies to work together, for departments of companies to work together in unison, instead of each against each other in the fight for revenue. Because all that data, it's only as useful if it's put together, again, in a privacy-friendly way. The last trend I just want to kind of like hop on or mention is and hop on the Beanie train. So in terms of email deliverability, I'm sure a lot of people had perhaps are either familiar or have heard that the concepts of sender policy framework, DKIM, or DMARC, which are authentication methods to make sure that your email browser accepts that email because it's verified, it's authenticated. We've all received thousands of spam email. These are the programs, are the tools that allow spam to be filtered into spam, or unwanted emails, or like phishing and so on. So without authentication, quite briefly, your emails don't get to the inbox. But another player that's arrived more recently is brand indicators for message identification, or BIMI. And this is a way for companies to also kind of like personalize their image in the email box, in their inbox. Sorry. So you might have seen already that some companies will have their logo next to the email. Not all email providers provide this. For example, Outlook, as far as I know, doesn't have this the logo that appears, but Gmail has it, and other major players have it, and it allows you to, as a company, to ensure that your email is recognized as a real email coming from you, from your company, and not a spam or a lookalike, and so on. So I'm going to leave it at that for this study. What I'd like to say is that we are working now on the 2023 study. So this study that I just presented is the 2022, which was based on the 2021 data, which is the year that was really a pivoting year, with AMPP being set up in September, or rolled out in September. Now our 2023 study, which is going to analyze our 2022 data, will be an even more interesting year because of all the regulatory changes, but also technological changes that I've mentioned, and others, of course, that I haven't mentioned. So if you are an ESP, if you are working in the email marketing industry, if you know any of these players that are interested, the study is it's for them, it's for you. We want to extend to more countries, to more ESPs. We're looking for new partners. There's absolutely no cost involved. The study is for us to manage, but for you to use. And we're working on an interactive dashboards where you'll be able to really, even in a even more granular way, you'll be able to compare the data based on the country, based on the day of the week, the month of the year, the type of industry, the metric that you want, and you'll be able to really get to the nitty-gritty and compare all these metrics. We'll, of course, be able to include the 2022 study. So it'll provide a first benchmark. And we're looking at, of course, of doing this study on a yearly basis. So we're really excited to see what comes next in terms of next trends and new metrics. So I'll leave it at that. I'll just leave this slide for a second. So this is the 2 QR codes. The first one is, you can just directly contact me. The one on the right is the one to download the study. Me at the GDMA/FEDMA and our partners at the GDMA are really excited about this study and how it helps any organization in email marketing or that uses email marketing improve their current work, and how, and we're obviously always welcoming comments and suggestions. We're changing the study as it goes on, so we're looking at how we can also improve the study in the coming editions. And yeah, I'm happy to take any questions if there are any, and that's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Robin. That was an incredible study, and thank you for sharing all of those insights from the study with us. It's really amazing to see the details and the amount of different items that can be analyzed in such a way. So thank you so much for being here with us today. We do have a couple of questions from the audience. So I want to start by asking you specifically what the motivation was for such a study. Why do you think such a study?
Yeah, good question. So I think the motivation is twofold. First, a lot of countries have their own national study. So we see it with our DMA members across Europe and the world. They have their own study that compares data points from their ESPs in their markets. But there wasn't, to our knowledge, a study that was comparing countries on an international level. So that was kind of like the idea, to piggyback on these existing national studies and how we can make it kind of streamlined across countries, so that an ESP in the Netherlands can compare its data, of course, in a weighted manner, to the one in India or in Brazil and so on. That's the first point. The second point is that we see that ESPs, there are a lot of ESPs out there. There are hundreds, thousands of ESPs around the world, and it's a very bustling business, but it's also a business of sales pitch. And we found that it was very interesting for us to provide that to them as a tool, that they can kind of, as I said, compare their data based on a baseline. Where do they fare? What can they do better? What can they do? Whether are they doing great? Maybe they're above average and so on. So it's really to help this twofold aspect of helping ESPs and our DMA members, and of course any organization, because I don't think any sales organization doesn't use email marketing in some way.
Absolutely. It's so widely used today that it's hard to believe there will be a company that doesn't find this study interesting. So another thing that I wanted to ask you was, who was our target audience that you had in mind when you set out with the study? Who did you think would be the main kind of audience for the study?
So, it kind of chips into my previous answer. The study is really for the whole industry. Of course, we are extremely grateful to the ESPs, email service providers, that are providing the data. They see a direct value for the study. So I would say the first audience is email service providers, so that they can use this data in their work. But then, of course, any organization, as I said, that works in email marketing and it should have an interest, in this study, or could find something interesting about how they can improve their work.
Excellent. Another question that came in as you were showing the generative AI examples and talking a little bit about how AI can bring value. I'm not sure if this is something that you can share with us now or maybe after the session, but we were asked by the audience, would it be possible to show examples of AI-generated emails for retail purposes? Is that something that you have or that you've seen as you were making this study?
Yes. No. So I don't have. We didn't ask that data point metric from our ESPs, because we try to. To make it, let's say, to streamline across all email service providers. the metrics are analytical, so it's really raw data points. To have examples of generative AI would require a more like content responses, and at that scale, we just wouldn't be able to aggregate that much data. When you see that it was 200 billion emails analyzed, if everyone is pitching for like we're using generative AI like this, we just wouldn't be able to compare them because it would require a more perhaps subjective view on that. But it is very interesting how ChatGPT and Bard and other AI tools like that are being used to create content. And so we're really looking forward to see what this study, this next edition, is going to show, and of course how our email experts are seeing this trend.
Yeah, that's definitely a super interesting point, and maybe something to include in the next study. I don't know if that's possible for the reasons you mentioned, but I would definitely be interested in seeing a stat like that.
Duly noted.
Was there anything that surprised you, especially surprised you, as you were receiving the results for the study?
I mean, in terms of raw metrics, I mean, there were a lot. Clear answer, yes. There was a lot of things that were very surprising. For example, that example specifically I made about how emails are least popular to be sent on weekends, but actually the hard bounce rate is lowest and the acceptance rate is highest.
That's the one that surprised me the most as well.
Exactly. And I think, and this is where, of course, you have to kind of take it with a bit of perspective, because it's not something that we can deduct directly from raw data. But you can imagine that emails that are sent in a B2B manner will be very poorly read on weekends, whereas a B2C email will be very greatly read on weekends, because most likely people will not read their work emails on the weekend and will read more their personal emails. Of course, this is kind of like generalization. But so this is something that we're looking into for the next edition, is how to split B2B and B2C email marketing, because it will have a huge impact. It's clear that if you're sending your emails to companies, if you want your product to reach companies, you're probably going to want to send your emails during the week. But if you're looking to reach out, to just B2C customers and so on, maybe the weekend is better, or like Friday mid-afternoon. Again, this is just kind of like imagining. I can't say that without data. But so it's really interesting based on what the objective of the organization is.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And as you were talking, I was thinking as well about, different verticals that might impact this, different regions. There's a lot of ways that you could slice and dice this to probably gain additional insights, which is really fascinating. I mean, there's so much in this world, and the fact that it's so measurable just makes it all that much more appealing, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So we're just coming up to the end of the session. I'll ask you one kind of last question to leave our audience with. And also a reminder to everyone who's watching us that Pact and Manning are giving away free ebooks for anyone who's like well engaged with the session. So please do ask us your questions, rate the sessions, and leave comments afterwards. But as kind of a parting question here, what are the main kind of takeaways that you want to leave everyone who's listening in here with? What would be like the top, 1-2 kind of key takeaways from this study that you feel everyone should come away with today?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So I would say the main takeaway is, use this study. It's for you. It's free. It's freely accessible. Use this study to see how your company is faring in terms of metrics. How are you dealing with the trends that we talked about? And they are in no way exhaustive. Of course, I mean, we had to pick some, but there's so much more going on in email marketing. But so I would say, please use this study, and if you have any comments, any suggestions, we want this study to be useful to organizations. So it's only by learning more from feedback that we're gonna do it better next time. So if you do have any comments or questions, please do reach out to me through the QR code or on LinkedIn or whatever. And the third, of course, is if you are an ESP, or if if you know an ESP, we are looking for new partners because we want to expand this study. The study is only is going to get stronger as we get more data included in it. So it's important for us also, to be able to represent more countries and more markets and industries and so on. I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Robin, for being here, for sharing your study with us. Thanks to the audience who was here with us and asking questions. We hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
This is all we got. Remember the revolution in our minds. This is all we got.
Lock me out of this life institution. I am angry and I am illusions. Yes, I hate, but it's not a solution.